Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Draft Capital here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. I'm Stephen Gillespie, and it wasn't too long until I was rejoined by a fellow co-host, president of Off the Ball Network, fellow Nothing But Net alumni, just overall good guy, my brother, Chris LeBron. What's up, Chris?
Hey man, what's going on, brother? It's always a pleasure chopping it up with you, and I'm excited about today's show, man. It's always fun. College basketball season's here. I'm excited that dive it into these prospects and all that. We got a nice crop of guys, and I'm excited to talk about the guys that we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah, man, we got a good group of guys. And speaking of good group of guys, we had a good guest on a couple days ago. If you're watching, listening to this live, we had Sam Ferris of the Locked On Podcast Network and the host of Draft Dummies had him on. It was a really good episode. We talked about 4 dudes. None of those guys we're really going to be talking about today, but shout out to Sam and the Locked On Podcast Network for, being such gracious guests and being willing to come on. All right, Chris. So speaking of, college hoops, you mentioned them earlier. We got a good group of guys. We're going to be talking about 5 in particular, man. And just before we get into the players specific, Chris, how good does it feel to have college basketball back upon us, man?
It's not just having college basketball back, because we had it last year, right? We had college. It's just the feel, right? Because I'm a Duke fan, right?
Yeah.
Watching Duke basketball last year with no Cam and Crazies was weird. And I think that had to, and I don't know how much it had to do with them having a bad season, but we know basketball, you feed off that emotion, and that's a sports peer, right? We saw that a lot, no fans, and how was that going to affect players? Because you need that adrenaline, right? Like, especially
gotta have it.
They're on top of you. You feel that energy, and that's a true home court advantage. They didn't have that, and I think that's not a big reason why they didn't have success, but a small part. So for me, seeing college basketball back, seeing the fans back, the atmosphere. I mean, we just had all the games at the Garden. That was just tremendous feel, and I was hoping to be there, and I couldn't be there. It's right in my backyard, New York City, Madison Square Garden, obviously, and I was so bummed out I couldn't get to go, but I'm just happy college basketball's back. We got the atmospheres back, so it's going to be a fun year. We're going to get back to normal in college basketball, which is the best part.
Man, getting back to normal. You said that pretty much sums it up, man. It was so awesome not only to see college basketball back, but like you said, Chris, seeing the fans in the stands, like even watching, not just the fans of these big powerhouse schools like your Dukes, but even, little schools getting a little bit of shine on TV. I mean, it's just good all around for every little bit of college basketball, every nook and cranny, every division and conference. It was so good just to see everyone back in action. So, Chris, before we get into the show, I want to remind everybody of our pretty new sponsor that we have at the Off the Ball Network, that being Built Bar. And unlike all the other bars that are out there that taste either like old Play-Doh or a piece of cardboard, when you eat a Built Bar, you will think you are cheating on your diet with a delicious chocolate dessert. If your kids find out how good these things are, Chris, you know all about this, you're going to have to buy more because they're going to be begging for them. They have great flavors such as cookies and cream. They got strawberry, peanut butter brownie, much, much more, including a mystery flavor. Chris, if you go online to built.com and enter in what you think this mystery flavor is, you can win a prize. While you're on there and you're ordering all these delicious bars, go ahead and enter in promo code Off the Ball at checkout to get a 10% discount. That'll let them know that we sent you. Chris, it's so awesome to be sponsored by Built Bar, ain't it?
Man, that's, when I first saw Built Bar, or even heard of it, was on the Locked On Podcast Network, and shout out to those guys.
Shout out.
Rafael Barlow, Chad Ford. They had it on their set, and I remember looking at it, and then I heard a lot of good things about it. So I was like, that would be a great, sponsor and all that. And, they luckily we got together, we bonded, and we made it happen. So that I'm excited about that. About to place my first order right now. I know Ken from Shoot to Shoot, our guy Ken order, and he raves about it. So
Loves
to me,
it.
I'm excited to finally, taste it and see how it is, because I'm sure it's great. So very happy that they are a sponsor for the Off the Ball Network. Looking forward to the continued business with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam, when he was on the show, he actually had a Built Bar on his person eating it during the show. It was cool just for him to be able to flash that Built Bar on the show live here. But Chris, we're going to be talking about some really good names in this upcoming draft cycle. And why not start it off big with probably the biggest name that everyone was anticipating coming into this class, that being Chet Holmgren. You know, he had a good game against Dixie State, played about 29 minutes, scored 14 points, 4-6 from the floor, didn't hit any of his threes, but was 6 of 9 from the line. Chris, he had 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 blocks, 5 turnovers. Not so good, but when you see the playmaking that he was trying to do, you could kind of forgive it. Plus, it's his debut game and only had 1 foul. What did you think overall about Chet's impact for Gonzaga?
I mean, he showed everything, you know, of what we've heard about, right? He's kind of been that we've kind of known about Chet for a while now, and you know, we saw everything he can bring to the table. We know he's a rim protector and all that, and all the things he could do with the ball and all that. Obviously, it's his first game, so you could look at it both ways. And I've told you, like, it is against Dixie State, so I'm not going to put too much stock, you know, whether good or bad into it. You know, you're going to look at it, you know, I'm going to look at it as, yes, this is his first real college basketball game, but it was against Dixie State. So I'm not going to get too high, too low. I know people can nitpick. I'm not going to nitpick with Chet on this one, but I'm not going to go like, oh my God, he looked great. Dixie State. Now, Dixie State is better than we thought. They actually have a solid club. They do have a solid team. So, you know, let's not disrespect Dixie State. But let's be real. You know, like I said, he looks solid. He showed everything we've seen, and he's the reason why he's going to be number 1 and number 2. I think he's going to be number 2 because you know who I think is number 1. You know, we'll speak about him, but he looks solid in his debut. You know, and this is what we're going to expect from him. He's going to be a double-double. You know, he's going to get you a bunch of blocks, and there's some playmaking ability there too. So, you know, looking forward to see him, you know, next coming games against, you know, some more steeper competition, you know, which they have coming up.
Oh yeah.
You know, you know, that Dixie Cup State, you know, I'm sorry, not Dixie Cup State. I don't know why
easy.
Cup in my head. Dixie State, sorry. No, sorry, anyone who's from Dixie State. That means Dixie State, not Dixie Cup State. But he's gonna have real competition real soon. So, you know, that's gonna be the biggest test for him. But solid debut, you know, overall for his first collegiate game.
Yeah, and when I watch this game, Chris, you know, I've been chopping the film up a lot lately and been posting it all over the Twitter. I saw a lot of why people are falling in love with Chet, and there's still, even after not only his, but there are several other, you know, great debuts in college basketball in the opening week. There's still people who are clamoring that Chet Holmgren showed enough, even in his opening game, that this is why he's considered to be potentially number 1 draft pick for this upcoming NBA draft. And I watched this game, and I kind of go either way on this discussion, Chris. Like, yes, you brought up that he played Dixie Cup State, right? Like, as you said, Dixie State. And shout out to Dixie State, man. Every podcast that I've listened to, everyone has been saying no disrespect to Dixie State, like every podcast I've heard, right? And we're not going to be any different. So no disrespect to Dixie State. But I don't know if you can look at this game and some aspects of what Chet did. Again, I understand for anyone who's going to come at me and be like, hey, this was only his first game in college basketball. I know. I watch college basketball too. I understand that this is his first game. There were some aspects where I'm like, okay, like you could see, especially the turnovers. I saw the 5 turnovers, and Chris, I was saying, like, you can live with some of those. He's trying to, you know, fill the room, fill the space. He's trying to see what he can get away with at this level, right? So, and you consider the amount of assists that he has, 6 assists. I mean, more assists than turnovers. That's good, right? Especially at the big man position. You like to see that type of activity. But there were other areas, Chris, that I noticed where I'm like, no one's really talking about this. And it drives me nuts, right? Because it's not that I don't want Chet to succeed. It's not that I'm totally against him going number 1 overall. I'm just going to say both sides of what I see for him. Chris, you touched on all the positives. I'll be Mr. Bad Cop here. He was on his backside so much in that game, dude. And I'm thinking, like, if he's
not
playing
a really
against
big team, Dixie State, like watching it, they don't have a bunch of big guys that are like, all right, they got a bunch of rim protectors that are just, you know, just being physical with them. that's the one thing that's going to be concerning with him, and you're going to discuss it right now.
Yeah, I mean, and even their centers right there, they're bigger than me, right? I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm bigger than they are, but in relation to other centers, like we're going to be talking about a couple other bigs here on the show today. They weren't necessarily the most athletic. They were kind of corn fed, as we like to say in my state of Arkansas. They're corn fed. They're thick bodies, and I can't remember a time where if Chet was sealed, him being able to go around it. Now, Chet, to his credit, is a very smart player. You hear about the competitive nature. You hear about how good of a thinker he is out there on the court. He understands angles well. He was able to get a number of offensive rebounds and get some really good putbacks, which was phenomenal. That's what I want to see him build upon. But Chris, there was a lot of times, man, where I saw him on the floor, and I'm just like, man, these aren't even going to be the best bigs that he goes up against in the college level.
No.
And he's red in the face. He looks tired towards the end of the game. Again, played 29 minutes. That's not nothing, right? But it's not, Patrick Baldwin Jr. we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. He played 37 minutes, and he just, for other reasons, didn't look tired at all. But I'm looking at Chet. I'm looking at how he played center in particular at Gonzaga. And I'm like, this dude is on his backside so much, Chris. Looking forward, I would love to see him, at least offensively, be a little bit more of a perimeter creator, maybe even a little bit more of that high post initiation that we saw against Dixie. What do you think about how am I crazy? Am I seeing things out there, or did you kind of see the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, he is extremely thin, to say that's putting it nicely.
If no one knew this, I'm sure you haven't heard it at all. Chet Holmgren is kind of skinny. No one's ever explained this to you, he's kind of a little
Kevin
guy.
Durant look like Ben Wallace. Like,
okay.
And listen, you know how I am. The strength will come in, and it's not like you have to be this big, a Ron Artest type wing. We see guys in the league, Kevin Durant, Ingram, that are thinner players that are averaging 25 plus a game. So like, you could be thin. Obviously, he'll get that. He relies a lot on his length.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, is a thing. Like, there was a couple possessions you see he is getting a little bit, but he's 7 foot and he has a 7 foot whatever wingspan, and that's going
forever wingspan.
And I don't like doing player comps, but it's very Kristaps Porzingis. He has a lot of Kristaps, and I think Mike Schmitz even said there's a lot of Kristaps in his game. And we know Kristaps, when he's healthy, he's right, is a really good player. But we see something with Kristaps, the physicality, right? Being, and being on the floor a lot. And then that's what you see sometimes with Chet. I see a lot of pick and pop. I mean, he's going to be a pick and pop monster, pick and roll and all that. That's all going to be good. But, there's still things he needs to work on, obviously. But like I said, it's game one. Big test is going to be the next game. I think they're playing what's their next game against?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot, man. I don't have every schedule committed to memory. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, people. I'll call it up though. Continue.
Yeah, and so they're gonna have more of a test, and we're gonna see how he goes against Texas.
Texas, yep.
Playing Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So
that's a big test.
And that's a top 5 matchup, and that's why I wasn't getting excited about Dixie State. This is going to be the test. We're going to see how he does against bigger competition. Now, they're not as big as they were like last year, Texas.
Yeah.
With Jericho Sims, Kai Jones, and Greg Brown, but still a test. And this is what we're going to see. This is why this is going to not make or break them, but this is what people are going to be like, okay, we believe Chet can be the number 1 pick because of this game. Or, okay, we still need to see more from Chet. So this is going to be a big game for him. So I'm very excited for this matchup.
Yeah, Texas, I mean, it doesn't matter what season they have. It seems like they always have at least one good big man playing down in Texas, right? So, Chet Holmgren going up against a higher level of competition. Again, no disrespect to Dixie State. I feel like we can't say that enough. But Texas is really one of these games that it's weighted more heavily in the eyes of scouts, Chris, because you want, in my opinion, if you see Chet Holmgren against Dixie State, you want him to pop. You want him to be like, oh, okay, there's no reason why Dixie State should even be on the floor against a Chet Holmgren, right? That's what you want to see. But against Texas, you still want to see him play exceedingly well. But against lesser competition, you want Chet to look like he's playing against lesser competition, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've said this to you. It's hard for me to get excited, even with my Duke, right? People, Paulo with his first game against, I forgot the school they were playing. I think Savannah State. You know, obviously you want to
Exhibition.
dominate, but I'm just not going to be able. I'm not going to take away too much from playing against a school that you should absolutely demolish by 60, and that's what they did. They essentially beat them by, they blew them out the gym. They scored 100 points. They gave 40 or whatever. So, I want to see you against big time competition, and that's going to be the big test, and that's coming up for Chet. So I'm excited about that matchup with Texas.
Yeah, and I mean Chet, by and large, is in a lot of people. I've heard some other podcasts and have seen some other boards that still have him top 10, but not in their top threes, not in their top fives. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to look past the limitations that they project on him physically. But then when you watch him play, though, man, I mean, he does a lot of things that you're just like, wow, like the playmaking aspect. Look at what Alexei Pokashevsky just did, that highlight reel pass that he did the other day for Oklahoma City, where he faked it one way, switched hands midair, and then fed the post for. I mean, it was just a beautiful play. You could easily see, in my opinion, Chet Holmgren doing something similar, but obviously you would like him to be a little bit more polished overall. And you see that defensively with the shot blocking. I mean, even though they're going straight for his chest almost every play, Chet's still getting in good positions to protect the rim. In my opinion, if anything else, Chet's just going to be a really good rim protector and a good playmaker out of the paint.
Yep. And
Obviously,
test against Texas because they got a lot of guards.
Mm-hmm.
So see how they do off the pick and roll and see how he reacts to that. So like I said, going to be a fun matchup.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll go from the unicorn here, so to speak, to a guy who is just kind of running away with it, in a lot of people's opinion, and that Mr. Paolo Banchero. Chris, you're smiling. I hear the ching, the little light flashing off the teeth there. Paolo Banchero, playing for your Duke Blue Devils, right? Am I not mistaken here? Plays for Duke, yeah.
Plays for Duke. Yep.
Okay.
He is a Blue Devil.
What did you think, man, about the Champions Classic? I mean, up against Kentucky, first game, that's a big test. Going up against a really good coach and Coach Calipari. A lot of really. I have more guys on my board, Chris, that play for Kentucky that play for Duke when I'm evaluating so far. That could change throughout the season, but initially, there are more Kentucky Wildcats on my big board than I have Duke Blue Devils, and putting up a solid performance and a win against Kentucky. Paolo Banchero played 31 minutes, 22 points, 7-11 from the floor, didn't hit any threes, but was 8 of 9 from the line, 7 rebounds, no assists, no blocks, 2 steals, only 1 turnover, and only 2 fouls, right? So you watch this game, Chris. What is so intriguing about Paolo for you to be your number 1 player on your board?
Man, he just, and we talked about this a little bit the last time, his body. He has the NBA body, 6'10", 240 pounds. His physicality, in the post, mid-range game. I mean, we saw that move he had where he had 2 guys on him on Kentucky, and he pulls and does the fadeaway and hits it with ease. And it's the confidence he had.
Mm-hmm.
He believes he's the best player on the court and in the country, right? He believes he's the best player every time he steps on the court. And it's that competitiveness he has. Because a lot of people, I remember people talking about Paulo, in high school, like his demeanor, right? The way he looks, right? Because if you just look at him and I've seen some interviews where, and he's not going to wow you, right? He's not one of those personalities that just is. But he's all business though. He's all business, and he's still, when he's on the court, he believes he is the best. And that competitiveness, something people question. I've heard some people. I mean, we saw that against Kentucky. He was that dude, and he showed a lot in that game. He showed a lot in this game. To me, the mid-range game is where he's going to absolutely kill it.
Such a pretty midi, man. I love that game.
That he has the bag too. He has the moves, the counters, and all that in the mid-range. And I think the outside, he didn't hit any of his threes, but from what I remember,
Not
they
against
weren't.
Kentucky, against
They
Army, he hit his
yeah,
one attempt.
yeah,
He hit
yeah.
his one
And
attempt.
that'll come. I think the outside shooting will come. He's still young and all that, so I think that'll come. It's not like he took a bad threes. From what
No.
I remember, they weren't bad shots. So it's not his. The shot selection isn't something that's questionable, right? Because some guys you'd be like, questionable shot selection. That's not the case with him.
Only 4 attempts so far on the season, so
Yeah,
super small
it's a
sample
small
size, right?
sample and
Yeah.
all that. But it's everything else to love about competitiveness. To me, I love his mid range game, the size, the physicality he brings. He's a special talent. That's why he's my number one. Maybe there's some bias because I do like Duke, but even if you take away the biases, what is there not to like about him? And he's athletic. There was a thing like, oh, he's not super. I was like, how? I mean, he's not Zion. I mean, if we're going to compare him to Zion or that case, I mean, then no one's that. But he's got hops and all that. He can definitely get up there. But he's a special talent. He's a special talent, and he's there's a reason why he's my number one, and he definitely is going to be at least a top 2 pick once we get to the draft next season.
Yeah, and I mean, he played against Army, only played 26 minutes, dealing with cramping and things like that. It seems like there's a lot of the young guys coming into college hoops this season, Chris, that are dealing with cramps. I don't really know if there's anything to that, but I've noticed a lot of cramping so far early in the going here. But, against Army, 18 points, 7 of 9 from the floor, hit his 1 3-point attempt in that game, 3 of 3 from the line, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. A little bit more in the turnover department, 4, but you live with that, right? The young player and 2 fouls again, right? So not really putting himself in a lot of, bad situations defensively, scoring the ball. And another thing, Chris, you were talking about where people were criticizing him and things that he needs to get better at. A lot of it was in high school. It didn't look like he was competitive in the paint, right? With the rebounding and things like that. Granted, it's against Army, but even against Kentucky, 7 rebounds, that's not bad at all for a guy who's not really camped out in the middle of the paint on both sides of the ball. It's not Oscar Tshiebwe, right? Who's phenomenal rebounder for Kentucky, right? But
grabbing everything.
Grabbing everything, looking like a Clint Capella out there type. But, against Army, 12 rebounds. And this is where it looks like, okay, Paulo is kind of checking off at least a couple of the areas of concern for a lot of people. How good could he compete on the boards? And right now, he's averaging close to 10 a game in two games. Again, super small sample size. But Chris, talk to me a little bit about some of the concerns with him were his physicality aspect of it. Do you still see that? Is that something where you're like, okay, maybe he can improve upon this a little bit more? Or are you just like, forget it, man? Like, this guy he's athletic, he's competitive. What else do you need to see from this guy so far?
I mean, I've seen it. It's just like I said, I saw that confidence, and I know people who were, like I mentioned before, they were stressing about his competitiveness and all that. I haven't seen it. And then from all the people I follow on Twitter that are close to Duke, they say this dude is a competitor, man. And that shot he made, against Kentucky, like I said, he's smiling. He just he has that bravado, he has that confidence that he is the best player. So I'm not worried about that. I think he thrives off playing big games. I mean, that's a big game, man. That's Madison Square Garden against the Kentucky Wildcat. That's a blue
Coach K's farewell tours, just the opening game.
Last game at the Garden, so that was a big game. That was a big game, and he played big in a big game. So to me, I'm expecting him to show up in these big games. So I'm not worried about the competitiveness and all that. I think he's fine. If anything, to me, these few games have shown that he is the ultimate competitor, and he's ready for the big moment. He's not scared of the big moment. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff.
Yeah, we'll see how much, your Detroits, your Houstons, your Orlandos, your Minnesotas, whoever, New Orleans even, how much are they looking forward to maybe getting Apollo Banchero on their team? The what I've seen on Twitter, the hashtag follow for Paulo is the new campaign right now. So, hashtag follow for Paulo. Number one on my board right now. I don't have a firm board, but right now, Chris, I haven't seen anybody who is approaching him right now. I mean, there's a couple games from Jaden Hardy. I know people are really big on him. A lot of people like Jaden Ivey. A lot of people like the aforementioned Chet Holmgren. I haven't seen anybody right now in the country who's ready to be drafted who is on Paolo's level. He might be the number one pick for me already right now, but we'll see. A guy who's gunning for that spot, though, Chris. So I posted this on Twitter, and I'm kind of a dork, so if nobody laughs, I'll laugh at myself. Here's some interesting facts about Jabari Smith Jr., Chris. He's from Georgia. You know what rapper lives in Georgia? Ludacris.
Ludacris, okay.
Ludacris had a hit. Ludacris had a hit called Number One Spot. He's coming for that number one spot. Jabari Smith, is he coming for that number one spot, Chris? Do you see what I did there? This is kind of lame.
I dig it. I dig it. You know, I got a little chuckle. You get a little smirk for me.
A little smirk. I mean, you're New Yorkers, guys. You can't be happy about anything. But anyway.
No. Especially if you've seen Nick's Twitter, it's not very pleasant right now.
It's not, man. It's not a happening place. But Jabari Smith Jr., we've seen him play twice. I'm still digging through clips for his latest game against Louisiana Monroe. Shout out to the Warhawks. I played high school in Mount Vernon, Arkansas. Our mascot was the Warhawks, so ULM's got a little small place in my heart just for the shared mascot there. But Jabari Smith played only 21 minutes against Morehead State. Only scored 8 points, 3 of 6 from the floor, 2 of 3 from deep. Didn't get to the free throw line at all. Had 6 boards, 3 assists, and his defense was there, Chris. 1 block, 3 steals, no turnovers, and 1 foul. And then against ULM, this is where a guy played 29 minutes, had 23 points, 7 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 5 from deep, 6 of 8 from the line, 10 boards, 2 assists, and 2 blocks, 4 steals, 4 turnovers, and 2 fouls. Chris, I'm looking at Jabari Smith, and this dude is so intriguing, dude. He's top 5 to me today. Might even be top 4 to me today. I might have him over Chet Holmgren for me today. Just today. It could change. I'm allowed to change my mind as the season goes along. But I am so intrigued, man, by Jabari Smith Jr. Super pretty jump shot, high release, competitive on the defensive side of the ball, flexing a little bit of handles against ULM the other night. Chris, I'm infatuated. He might be my favorite player right now in the early going. What do you think about him?
The defense, man. When you said that, that's what made me pop, because that's what I saw on the defensive side. He just gets in you. He has all the tools. I think we're talking about him definitely top 3. I know, like I said, it's early, but just he has all the tools you want in a wing. Has a nice bag too, can with his counters and all that. That's what I like, setting up his jump shot, getting to the basket, pretty shot too. Yeah, there's nothing not to like about Jabari. He has all the tools to be and possibly climb up and pass him, maybe, one of these guys, because he has, maybe people like his more fluid as an athlete than Apollo, and Chet, with his, people may worry about Chet's, durability down the line. He has everything. He has the body, all that. The defense to me is what's that two-way potential. It gets special. And there's a lot of special traits about him. And, he's, I can see why you really like him a lot as a prospect. And I'm starting to really like him more the more I watch him, except early, but yeah, he has a lot to like, especially on the defensive end where he could get in you and lock you up.
Yeah, and I'm watching him switch, and that's one of the aspects that I think teams are wanting in a big man nowadays, Chris. You see this all the time, the term switchability. My man's got it. I mean, it's just plays for Auburn, so he's playing for Bruce Pearl. The defense is going to be preached to him. Bruce Pearl, longtime college coach, big on defense. Most of his teams are pretty good defensively, really athletic teams. Jabari Smith Jr. fits that mold to a freaking T. I love how he understands angles on the defensive end so well. For all the credit that we're giving Paolo Banchero not Paolo Banchero, but Chet Holmgren and his ability to position himself well, I'm seeing a lot of the same things, man, from Jabari Smith Jr. Yeah. I'm watching him attack closeouts and not overcommit to those to where he gets himself in foul trouble easily. I'm watching him with a guy attacking the basket to stay in front of him, but also create enough space to where he cuts off the angle. I'm seeing him just completely shut out any sort of entry pass into the paint. I'm watching him block shots. I'm watching him contest layups. I'm watching him basically shut down the attempt of a skip pass on his side of the floor. I love everything that I'm seeing from him defensively. Chris, today I'm cutting film, right? And I'm watching him and I'm just like, is this young Giannis Antetokounmpo on the court? I mean, it might be taboo for me to say that because dude just won a ring this past season. He's already defensive player of the year, multiple time MVP in the NBA. But I'm looking at Jabari Smith and I'm looking at the youth. I'm looking at the competitiveness. Like anytime, like this dude is so hyped every time he does something on the floor, man. And I'm watching this energy. And then I'm looking at the other side of the ball and it's such a pretty shot, willing to facilitate. He's showing really good glimpses as a playmaker too.
Yes.
Chris, I mean, I cannot stop gushing over and over about Jabari Smith Jr., dude.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I saw too is his playmaking ability and his ability. He's going to be. I don't even think a secondary player. I think he could be an initiator at times. He brings the ball. I mean, I think it's. I don't know what's in the milk these days, but these kids are 6'10" now, and
all these dudes are big.
I mean, it's just crazy. Like it's like if you're not 6'8", you're like short now. But like these 6'10" kids, they all got handles and they can pass now. It's really
and they can shoot
and they could and
they run.
This guy is a gazelle. Like it was like Isaac Okoro a couple years ago, right? And to me, he's Isaac Okoro, but just with way more offensive game. And to me, that like Isaac Okoro went what? Third to Cleveland.
Yeah, he went to Cleveland. I can't remember if it was third.
He was top 5, right? So
I think it might have been 6. Was it 6 to Cleveland?
Was it 6? So he was a top 10 pick, right?
Yeah, easy.
And that was just defense, knowing that he was a defensive player with maybe some potential for offense. With Jabari, we already got that. So he has the defense, right? That Okoro had, right? And the physicality. And he's got the offense. I mean,
he's a competitor, dude. Like,
yep.
We're going to talk about a guy here in a little bit.
There's a lot of energy with him too. Like he might be, the most amped player, if that's even like a scouting thing. He's most amped player. Like I don't know if that's a real thing, but I'm gonna bring it up. He gets excited. He gets really amped up. When he makes a play, and that to me that's infectious, right? And to me, especially with the crowds being back fully, that's going to be a big reason why Auburn can do some things this year. And he's definitely someone that I liked before, but as you get to see him play live action, I see why people like him a lot, and he's gonna, I see him for a lot of boards right now in that 5 to 15 range. I've seen him as low as late teens.
I've seen him upwards of 4 though. There's a lot of people that already have him 4.
He's going to be in that. Like I said, it's super early, I know, but if we're just speaking right now, he's got to be a top 3 pick right now. It would be hard for me to pass him up if I have the third. If we go chalk and we say Chet's 1 and we go Paolo 2, it's hard for me. Whoever, it doesn't even matter what team you are.
I mean, Hardy's getting a lot of love right now. I mean,
Jaden Hardy is definitely going to be in that conversation too. But to me, Jabari is just a little bit more polished right now as an offensive player, and you're going to get the defense too.
That might get you some criticism, man, because you're talking on the eve of Hardy just put up his best game in the G League. But I see what you mean. Because if you can do similar things, but you're taller, that's going to help you out a lot. Obviously he doesn't got like the breakdown, take you off the dribble moves as a Hardy, but he in his own right is effective offensively. And then I'm going to start calling this dude Circus because he's intense. You see what I did there? This is another bad joke. Anyway, it's another bad joke.
That one, all right, not your best.
All right, not my best. I'm working on it. But anyway, Jabari Smith Jr. You talked about how infectious that attitude can be. Imagine being an upperclassman in Auburn, right? Or a transfer on this team, and you got this 18-year-old kid come in, and he is the best defender on the floor. You got to be like, whoa, I got to step my game up now because Jabari's coming in here day one and setting the tone. That's going to help your team. And even at the next level, it's going to help your team. We see a number of rookies already making a name for themselves defensively. Jabari could be the next guy in line to do that. All right, Chris. So we're going to be talking about a guy who's more polished, more finesse as a big. Now we're getting down to a bruiser, dude. Jalen Duren, holy moly. I know it was against Texas Tech, but oh my goodness, there was some absolute gems in his film that I broke down the other day, man. I mean, against Texas Tech, he played 31 minutes, 15 points, was 7 to 10 from the floor. Chris, I'm looking at all these numbers. If you hit 7 field goal attempts in college basketball, you're going to have one of the best nights on the floor. I mean, anybody that scores 7 buckets is going to be up there. He's 1 of 2 from the line, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 blocks, no steals, only 3 turnovers, and only 1 foul. Chris, I'm seeing Dwight Howard comparisons to him. I'm seeing Bam Adebayo. I see a little bit of Demarcus Cousins in his game personally, breaking down the film. But talk to me a little bit about Jalen Duren out of Memphis.
He's been kind of like a polarizing player, right? People have been super high on him or be like, oh, he's just a post player. I think he's way more than just like a Dwight Howard type where he's just like a rim protector and just anything around him. And there's nothing wrong with that. Dwight Howard, made one defensive player of the year, 3 times off that, and should have been on the top 75 list, but that's for a whole nother
show. Took your team to the finals.
Took the team to a finals, right? And a couple things go their way. They could have been world champions. And
he is a champion as a Laker.
And but with Orlando, I'm talking about, but like
I hear you.
He finally won his championship and was a big reason why they won. He obviously he's going to block everything in sight. I mean, he doesn't just block it. He's trying to swat it like he's trying to swat a fly, and the fly. That's what he does. He just tries to 12 throw it. And
he's like a dad playing basketball with his little kid, like a 3-year-old trying to get a ball.
Your son, like, hey, all right, you don't come into my house, all right? I'm just going to swat it. And that's what he does. But to me, there's more. There's way more to his game. Like you see some, like I said, I think it was against Tennessee Tech. So, like you said, you're not going to don't get too high, get too low. But you saw some things that you're like, okay. You saw some playmaking, right? Saw some playmaking right there. A little bit of a bag, a little bit the post and all that. Got some moves and all that.
Little shake and turn around.
Little shake and all that. He could guard anyone on the floor. Like, pick and rolls, you're not going to be able to blow past him and all that because he can just, his recovery, on pick and rolls, like he's gonna get to you. So
even switching, there were times where he was guarding their point guard.
Yeah,
there was like a foot difference, and he was staying in front of the kid.
And then he has, I think his wingspan's like 7'4", 7'5". I don't
7
know.
foot forever.
7 foot forever. Yeah, it feels like that. But to me, there's a lot more to his game than just get everything around the basket and block shots. I think there's more to it, and that's why he's been such a prospect. That another guy that's people are skeptical about him, but to me, he has all the tools to be. He's another one who's going to be top 5. I mean, I think there's a lot more to his game. Like he can get, and he's super young. What is he, 17?
Yeah, right? he came in. He reclassified just like Amani, right? And came in 17 years old.
Yeah, so he's and him and Amani are gonna do
Amani had a heck of a game.
Yeah. He had a solid game for his first game, and Amani, unfortunately, we got to wait for next year to talk about him in the draft since he's freaking. It feels like he's 13 playing in college, but he's a special talent. I definitely see some potential as getting a little midi. I think he can get a midi. I think that's definitely something I could see in his game. Obviously, he still has time to develop that, but right now, he's a freak. He's a freak of nature. He's a freak of nature, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So he's entertaining to watch. So I think that's another aspect that teams are going to like too, is that entertainment factor. You know, he's going to put people in the seats because he's just an exciting player on both sides. Transition. I mean,
dude, that alley oop,
scary in transition. We saw it a little bit. You know,
that alley oop that he caught against Tennessee Tech, where he's running down the floor and I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember who threw the lob, but oh my goodness, he just floated through the air. It seemed like from the free throw line almost, Chris, where he just floated, caught it, dunked it, and then tried to hang upside down on the rim. Like it was nasty. Yeah. I couldn't believe how high he got off the ground, man.
Oh yeah, he's, you know, and people, and the one comparison, like I said, I don't really like doing comparisons a lot because then, you know, it just locks you into that.
But it helps our listeners, Chris.
It sounds good, right? Because everyone loves comparisons and all that, right? But a lot of people say Dwight Howard.
Mm-hmm.
I see more Bam-like.
A lot of people have been saying Bam, though.
Playmaking. Because Dwight's not really a playmaker, right? He's not really He hasn't shown in the league, at least, right? He says he could play make. We haven't seen it, you know.
Hey, in Orlando, you know, the 4 out 1 in, you know,
a little bit. We still. I think there's a lot more with Durant that as far as playmaking. So I'm not saying quite, but if we're gonna try to compare, I think the ceiling could be like a more athletic Bam Adebayo, which is it's kind of freaky, but
okay.
I see the play. I like some of the playmaking, and like I said, once he gets it all together, you know, it's hard to project, but I love to envision these guys 5 years down, and it's scary what he can be if he gets it all together, puts it together. I mean, he's gonna try to dunk on every person humanly imaginable, because that's what he did in the Tennessee. He's trying to dunk on your soul. He's trying to end. He's trying to put you on a poster and everything, and he's blocking everything. There's a lot to love about him. He's excited, so I'm looking forward to see him the rest of the year. Him and Amani are going to be fun to watch in Memphis.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up the comparison to Demarcus Cousins. Now, a lot of the listeners or viewers may not remember young pre-injury Demarcus Cousins, but dude could get up, could play make, could run the floor, had a nice little turnaround game. We saw that against Tennessee and shot blocking too. So, I mean, I see a little bit of all three of those dudes. I've even heard a really big stretch that I saw on Twitter was Chris Webber, and I said, well, not so fast, because Chris Webber, one of the most underrated dudes ever. One of the most polished offensive players as a big man that you'd ever seen.
No. Maybe if they're talking about just like this pure size of the like frame, maybe, but he's not as. Chris Webber, even at this point as a freshman, was more polished as an offensive player than
Jalen
is. Even though maybe not defensively did with Jin, but
like, are we talking about way past his prime, like come out of retirement, play one season in Detroit? Chris Webber, is that what we're talking about right now? Because
like if we're talking about Michigan or Sacramento or Washington, he's definitely nowhere near that, but maybe if they're just talking about the size, I could see that. They're kind of similar size-wise, maybe, but offensively, there's just not
even a little bit. All right, Chris, we're going to get to our last guy here. Now, Patrick Baldwin Jr. is largely speculated, Chris, to have the prettiest jump shot. I'm not going to say one way or the other it's wet, dude. It's effortless. It's a high release. It seems like he could do it all day long. Just real quick, buddies from the Off the Ball Network have written in live here. Kenneth Cotterill said, Chet got them Bambi legs. Have a great show, fellas. Shout out to our buddy Kenneth. And then also our vice president at Off the Ball Network, Mo Murphy, says, shout out to the GOATs. What's up, Mo? Much love, brother. Appreciate you tuning in. All right, so Chris, last guy, Patrick Baldwin Jr., largely believed to have the best looking jump shot. Love the size. He's playing for his dad at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Had a pretty solid game against North Dakota, played 37 minutes, scored 21 points with 6 of 14 from the floor. Didn't quite get to that 7 made field goals, but 2 of 7 from deep, 7 of 8 from the line, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, no steals, 3 turnovers, and 2 fouls. Chris, before I get into my analysis of the game, One, did you get a chance to watch any of the matchup against North Dakota? And if you did, what were some of your takeaways from that game?
I mean, he's a lot more physical than people give him credit for. He was able to get to the basket a little bit, and I know people kind of worried about them with that. The shot is smooth, silky smooth, and I've been to Patrick Bowles because he was at one point he was going to Duke. So I've been watching him for a while because it looked like he was going to Duke. And then obviously things changed. Paolo going there, and then obviously him, his dad being the coach at UW, changed things, and he wound up committing there, which is good for him. I was happy for him, even though I would have loved to have seen him, AJ Griffin, and Paolo together and have that.
And Keels,
Yeah,
and everyone else.
Fields and Wendell Moore and all that. It would have reminded me when they got Cam, Zion, and RJ together, formed their big three. But I mean, I think he's more, people talk about him as being just strictly finesse. I think there's more to his game than being just a finesse player. I think, can handle the ball, get to the basket. He's another one of those guys where I saw him, a lot of people have him, in that 4 to 15 range.
Yep. It's kind of a wide ranging scale
kind of
for a guy like him.
Wide, not super wide, but I've seen him a little bit, people trying to figure him out. I know he's not going to play against the greatest of competition, and I think that's the thing maybe people were bummed out about where he
has Florida coming up, so a couple,
but to me I'm not super worried about does your game translate? I think we could figure out things that's translated. We've seen plenty of guys who play low D1 schools that have translated, and we've seen plenty of guys who have played at the highest, played in the Big Ten and the ACC and all these big conferences that have flailed and then are not in the league anymore. So, watching him, he's got a nice pull-up game and all that. Just the shot, once again, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. There's a couple guys in this draft class where their shot is just.
Caleb Houston. I'm a big Caleb Houston guy. Love his game.
Who's the other dude I was raving about a few days ago? My memory sucks, but there's just a few guys.
Champagne. I know you're a big Champagne guy.
Yeah. But
Will Richardson's got a nice shot.
Will Richardson has a couple. I'm trying to think of the other guy. I was just talking about him too. I totally blacked out his name, but it'll come to me. But
Jabari Smith got a nice shot. Just saying.
Jabari Smith does have a nose. And it's going to bother me in the name. God, let me see.
It'll come to you right when we're closing the show.
Exactly. Exactly when it's going to come up and pop up. But has a pretty shot as all the tools you want in the wing, right? And like I said, he's more physical than people think. So looking forward to watching. I root for him, even though he didn't go to Duke. He didn't choose Duke. I still one of those guys. I root for
one of your guys, man. It's okay.
I still consider one of the guys. Because there's certain, like I said, he was going to Duke. Things changed. Your dad's the coach. I mean, can I get mad at that? Really?
It's forgivable.
Yeah, it's definitely forgivable. And there's a lot to like about his game, and that shot is, once again, it's beautiful, and can't wait to watch more of him.
Yeah. Me either, man, because when I was watching this game, when I went to look back at the box score to see how he actually did, I was more surprised that the numbers were as high as they were. And I don't know if because of the hype surrounding this guy, I mean, our good buddies over there at Draft Corey and Albert, they're big PBJ guys. They love PBJ. And so I watched him play and I was like, yeah, he was okay, but I found him standing around a lot, dude, like on both sides of the ball. There was one play in particular where his dad was standing next to him, like in the corner 3, and like literally put his hand on his back and pushed him to get into motion on like to move. And I was just like, okay, like this is a coach's kid and he's being told to move around. And again, it's super small sample size. I'm going to be the same way with him as I am Chet. I'm not going to waver one way or the other. Still good. Smaller competition. I just wanted him to look like it was like a no contest against North Dakota. But also there were times I even tweeted this out. I was like, there were so many times I was watching, him play with his teammates. And I'm like, why isn't he touching the ball every single stinking play? Like there was a lot of times where the ball didn't even find its way over to him. So I was a little bit concerned about that. But, super small sample size. It was his college debut in the NCAA. So, I'm not going to bolster dudes up. I'm not going to tear them down based off of my initial thoughts about them coming into the season on one game, Chris. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, man, I mean, did you see any of what I saw? The standing around, the kind of the
Yes.
lackadaisicalness.
Yes.
I was just like, come on, man, move, do
And
something.
and that's another guy that people talk about him being, very maybe lackadaisical, and and in high school it's tough to like, because when you're in high school and guys like these 5 stars, they're the man, they're big man on campus. Like they can just show up, not practice, and drop 30, right? So it's effortlessly. So it's, to me, when you hear about that oh, they don't show a lot of effort. Well, sometimes you're just so dominant,
You get bored a little bit.
you get bored, right? And when you're just that good, you get bored a little bit. And you saw that sometimes at Duke. And he's another guy that's just very, he's not going to give you much, as far as emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I saw some of that, right? You see his dad pushing him around, and that's giving some of his thing. Defensively, he could be like a very good defender, right? Sometimes have lapses and all that, and I think that can all get corrected. He's playing with his dad. I'm sure his dad's going to get in. If there's any coach that can get you to play, it's your dad, right?
Sure.
If anyone, I've never had my dad as a coach, but I can imagine, like, I know a lot of people who have their dad, and they're probably the toughest coaches on you is your dad if he's a coach. So
Yell at you on the way home and on the way to practice and all that.
And especially him being the best player on the team, right? He's going to be expected to be the leader, right? And he's got to show that leadership skills. He wants to be a top pick. That's what you're going to expect. So I expect to see better body language and better effort. Not that he wasn't giving effort because there was plays, but
still did well. Again,
motor.
There was just I wanted to see a little bit more. I didn't want to see him standing around. I wanted to see foot on the gas the whole time. And again, he played 37 minutes. I don't know if he's saving himself to be able to play, try to play average 38 minutes a game for his team. I don't know what the goal is here. I'm just saying that when your coach, let alone it being your dad, is seeing you stand around on the offensive end and reaches in and in actual game play and pushing you to get in the motion on the offensive end, it's like, okay, bro, you're supposed to be like the guy right now. I'd like to see you do a little bit better. But anyway, I mean, that's just, it is what it is, man. And still put up 21 and 10 and looked good kind of doing it. Wasn't even his most efficient night that we're going to see from him this year. Again, 6 of 14, 2-7 from deep. We're going to see more shot making from him, and man, he can get that shot up so easily. It's high release. It's
high release.
It just floats.
And him and Jabari have really high releases, and it's going to be tough for people to try to close out and block them shots. So, that's what they have to advance. Like you said, these guys are just freakishly, it's just crazy. We see these guys 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" with the bags they have and the shooting ability. It's crazy, but he's good. I definitely see him, the competitiveness getting a little bit better as the season goes on, but he's another
one game. It's just one game.
Figuring out college and all that. But
it's just something I saw, and I'm going to talk about what I saw. It's the same thing with Chet. Like no one talked about Chet falling down on the ground all game long. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll be the guy. I'll put my name out there and say, hey, Chet fell on the ground a lot in this game. Same thing with Pat, getting shoved by your coach in actual gameplay because you're not moving. Like, let's just see you move a little bit better, brother. That's all I see.
Of course. And I think we'll see more a consistent motor. Like I said, he did play a lot of minutes, and he may have been gassed, but you can't do that every game, and there's going to be, you're going to play teams better than North Dakota. And you're going to have to show that leadership.
Got Florida coming.
People we got Florida come up. You got a big game, against a big-time Power 5 school.
That's going to be one of the games that guys are going to focus on.
Exactly. These are the games, since you play at such a low school, these are the games that they're going to be looking at, right? How did you do against the Power? Everyone who goes to not a non-Power 5 school, they're not going to care how many points you average. They're going to be like, well, how did you play against whatever amount of Power 5
credible competition?
Or Gonzaga. I know Gonzaga is technically not a Power 5, but they are a power school.
They're a power
school. And Gonzaga, they're going to see how you play against that. play against those teams. So that's a test, you know. We'll see how he does, but everything you want in the wing, smooth offensive game, crisp, has the size, some defensive potential, great off screens. There's a lot to like about him. Just want to see the consistency motorized with his motor and all that, but it has all the tools you want to be a top 5 pick. He has everything you want to be a top 5 pick.
I understand completely why people are high on him. And again, just want to see a little bit more. That's okay. If you're gonna give this guy to me on a high plate, I'm gonna hold him to a high standard. That's all exactly. I'm trying to say. But all right, man. So Chris, dude, went through essentially a starting 5 here. I mean, how many teams would love to have Chet, Paulo, Jabari, Jalen Duren, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. in their starting 5? I mean, this is essentially our starting 5 since we've ran the show. First time with just us without a guest in a little while. And shout out to, Tyler Rucker, Albert Gim, and Sam Ferris, some tremendous guests that we've had. We're going to have Mark Schindler of Tag the Roll come on next week. That's going to be a fun show. We're going to talk about even more prospects that we haven't got to talk about. But Chris, dude, just us, we ran through some heavy hitting 5. How do you feel about it?
Man, it was a fun show. It's always fun talking, always fun talking about the prospects and diving into them, earlier than I would usually do. Probably wait down, but getting into them early, it's been fun doing this process. So this is we've had a lot of success early on, and looking forward to the guests we have down the line and all that, and talking more about these. There's so much talent, right? Especially in the. There's some potential blue chippers, but just diving into seeing who's those hidden gems too is also fun too. And the international prospects, we've dove into those guys, and as internationals, you see more international play go on, getting more intel on them is going to be fun during the season. But so always a pleasure chopping up with you, brother.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So Chris, before we close out, I know that you were just on a show. I know you got another show coming up. I mean, you're just, man never stops working. That's why you're the best in the biz, man. Before we close out, why don't you let all the fine viewers and listeners and, just Draft Capital fans out there, let them know where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, man, you can follow me, obviously, Off the Ball Pod on Twitter. It's where I'm most active. Instagram, Off the Ball Podcast. The YouTube, make sure to follow us on YouTube, Off the Ball Network, as the show is being broadcast right now on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. Got a show today. Just be covering everything in the NBA. Discuss everything going on. And like I said, just follow everyone offtheballnetwork.com. People posting a lot of great content there, so to go check that out. Like I said, Built Bar, all that good stuff. We got some stuff coming up with BetUS that I'm excited about.
Can't wait
for that. So a lot of good stuff. Check out all the sponsors we have. Check out all the products and all they have, and help contribute to the network and all that. We're doing good things. So, man, it's like I said, always a blast chopping up with you.
Yeah, man, likewise, and appreciate, as always, all you do for the network, and especially here on Draft Capital. Love running the show with you, man. But as for myself, follow me on Twitter at Stephen G. Hoops. It's kind of the persona that I've adopted lately. You could follow me on Instagram at Stephen W. Gillespie. You can follow Draft Capital on social media at Draft Capital NBA. Anywhere that you get, your social media needs. For your podcasting needs, we got you covered there. Anywhere you get your podcast, go search Draft Capital. You'll see a cool little white building with a basketball in front of it, 2 banners that show Draft Capital. Again, go back. If this is your first time listening to us here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, appreciate you tuning in. Go follow the podcast, and you can go back and listen to all the shows that we've had so far. Again, we've had a couple solo shows with us. We've had Tyler Rucker, Albert Gim, both of those guys from No Ceilings, and Sam Ferris from the Locked On Podcast Network and Draft Dummies on. We're going to have Mark Schindler from Tag the Roll on. We're going to have our buddy Urson from the Off the Ball Network on later. We got a whole bunch of other great guests lined up coming down the pipe, so don't miss it. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, subscribing, rating, reviewing. 5 stars is always appreciated. But for my co-host Chris LeBron, for myself, for the lovely people on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, this has been Draft Capital. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Much love, everybody.